What is going on, everyone? Welcome into Big Time Football Talk. So I wanted to do a mock draft. This is a mock draft of what I would do, starting with number one, Carolina Panthers taking Bryce Young, quarterback from Alabama. To me, Bryce Young is my number one quarterback here. Carolina obviously traded up with having a quarterback in mind. I think they take the best quarterback here, get Bryce Young from Alabama. Number two, Houston, I have them taking CJ Stroud, Ohio State. Stroud, very, very good quarterback. Him and Bryce Young, they could go vice versa. CJ Stroud could go 1 to Carolina. Bryce Young could go 2 to Houston. But have the Texans taking CJ Stroud here. I was tempted to have them take a defensive or have them take Tyree Wilson, but I'll have Arizona Cardinals take Tyree Wilson at 3. 4, I have the Indianapolis Colts taking Anthony Richardson, quarterback from Florida. You know the potential that Anthony Richardson has. He's got all the tools to succeed in the NFL. We'll just see if he can maximize that skill set. Number 5, Seattle Seahawks taking Jalen Carter. If you followed the Jalen Carter, situation closely, the drag racing, lying to NFL teams about the situation. It sounds like he has issues with his coach. Despite the off the field issues, there's a there's a potential for a high upside with Jalen Carter, and Seattle does need an interior, defensive lineman that could disrupt the game like Jalen Carter is capable of. Number 6 out of the Lions taking Devin Witherspoon. Lions traded Jeff Okudah today. I think it was a pretty good trade. I think it made a lot of sense for Detroit because Okudah wasn't in their long-term plans. It's a guy that showed flashes early this season, but just riddled by injuries once again later in the year. Still a good tackler, still a pretty good athlete, but Lions signed a couple corners in free agency, so you bring in Devin Witherspoon to really, continue to strengthen that secondary. So the Lions taking Witherspoon, corner out of Illinois. And 7, the Vegas Raiders taking Peter Skoronski, tackle out of Northwestern. The Raiders, a few years ago, the offensive line was really strong, just hasn't been a strong unit the past couple of years. Leatherwood was a first-round bust. Skoronski's not my number one tackle, but you know what? This guy is a very, very good football player. And, a guy that does have the versatility to be a guard or tackle. Maybe if you want to put him at left guard next to Colton Miller, or if you want to play him at right tackle, I think he can do either one. I like this pick for Las Vegas, and they try to strengthen their offensive line. Thought about going corner here. A lot of people like corner for the Raiders, but I settled on taking Peter Skoronski, who a lot of people have as the number one offensive tackle in this draft. Number 8, Atlanta, Will Anderson Jr. This is where the Will Anderson Jr. slide stops. Will Anderson, a lot of things I'm hearing, I'm starting to push back on, maybe he does not have as high of upside as you think. He is a guy that, the production was there, but a lot of that was favorable schemes by Saban and their defensive coaching staff. Chris Sims really outlined this on his podcast. And despite all, the concern, despite, Will Anderson might not having a high upside, he still's a very good football player. And I think will bring a strong, presence, tone, and, really set the tone in Atlanta. Number 9, I have the Chicago Bears taking Paris Johnson Jr. Paris Johnson, him or Skoronski is kind of talked about as, the top offensive tackle in this draft. It's pretty close if you look Vegas odds, Paris Johnson or Skoronski, who's going to go 1. But, it seems like it makes sense for the Bears to go offensive line here. Chicago's offensive line really hasn't been good in years. And you add Paris Johnson, This is a guy that also has played guard at Ohio State, also could do that. So take him there. 10, I have the Philadelphia Eagles taking Luke Van Ness from Iowa. To me, this is the rich getting richer here. The Eagles very solid on both the offensive defensive line this past season. Took Jordan Davis last year. Still have Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. You had Luke Van Ness, a guy that power is the name of his game, and he'll fit in nicely in Philadelphia, and they'll find a role for him. And Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles, they love to draft the trenches. So I think Luke Van Ness would be a perfect fit in Philadelphia. So to recap, number 1, Bryce Young to Carolina. 2, CJ Stroud to Houston. Tyree Wilson 3 to Arizona. Hit on some more notable ones here. Anthony Richardson 4 to the Colts. Jalen Carter 5 to Seattle. Will Anderson sliding 8 to Atlanta. And then the Philadelphia Eagles getting Luke Van Ness at 10. So I want to talk a little more the Jeff Okudah trade. To me, I always love when trades are good for both sides. I think that this is a good deal for Atlanta because they get a guy to go opposite of A.J. Terrell, who's a very good. Okudah's still a good athlete, a very good tackler, kind of a good complement. On the opposite side of A.J. Terrell, you only have to give up a 5th round to get him. It's his last year of his rookie deal, so if he doesn't really play well, you can just move on from him. And for Detroit, it sounds like they were either going to cut him this year, or if they kept him on the team, they were going to cut him at the end of this year. So it's one of those things where if you had plans on cutting him, you might as well have gotten something for him. I mean, as a Lions fan, would I have loved to get more for him? Sure, but you'll take a 5th round. They can use that 5th round if they need to, move up and get a higher pick. Say they're in the 2nd round and they like Jack Campbell a lot. Maybe they use that pick to move up to the 1st or 2nd pick of the 2nd round and go snag Jack Campbell or whoever they like in the 2nd round. So I'll wrap with that. Thanks for tuning in to Big Time Football Talk. Make sure to stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show. Till next time, peace.